Welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrea Lelovic and I'm from Pontis Foundation. We are organizing this webinar. I'm really grateful you joined us. I would suggest that we wait another 5 minutes, a few minutes, just to make sure that the latecomers will not miss the start, and then we can start in a few minutes.
Andrika, ja sa budem snažiť teda dívať do toho mobilu, lebo ja vlastne sa tam nevidím, ale to je v pohode, hej?
OK. Okay, shall we start? I think it's time. Let's see. Okay, so welcome everyone to our webinar of the Social Innovation Academy. This academy has been organized in the framework of the Interreg Central Europe program. My name is Andrea Lelovic. I'm from Pontis Foundation, and we will have our webinar on a case study from Slovakia about the biggest volunteering event in Central Europe. I would like to welcome you once again, everyone. I'm really grateful that you could join us. Please, in this system, in the Zoom system, you can, of course, listen to us. You can share your camera with us. After the presentation, you will be able also to post questions. But you can do so also during the presentation when you use the chat function. And in this chat function, you can also introduce yourself if you have just to state where are you from, why are you here. And also if you have any technical questions, you can post this also to the chat. So welcome everyone once again, and let's start. Let me introduce you Lenka Surocek. Lenka is a co-founder of Pontis Foundation in Slovakia, and just until recently she also led this foundation, and she was at the birth of our town of this volunteering event. So this is why I'm really glad that she could join us and tell us more, introduce us this whole volunteering activity. So Lenka, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm actually saying good morning from Washington, where there is still a little dark, as Andreas said, I'm a former CEO of the Pontis Foundation. I just recently moved to be with my family in Washington, D.C. And it's kind of very interesting because also the inspiration for carrying our town came from the United States. I used to study at NYU. I got a Fulbright scholarship and I studied public policy here. And during this work, I volunteered for the organization New York Cares. Some of you might know it. It was a part of a big movement of cities, Washington, Hands-On, and New York Cares, and Atlanta Cares, and some other cities Cares. And I really like this mobilization of volunteers, where really very busy business people were able in a very efficient way to donate their time. So then we just brainstormed when I came back to the Pontis Foundation, and we tried something similar, not quite the same in Slovakia, and that's what I will be talking about. And it's really in a way of just a very short case study. And as Andreas said, I will be happy then to answer any questions. A little more about just the Pontis Foundation, that you know where we are coming from. We are devoted to corporate responsibility, inclusiveness, transparency, and education. And we look at it really through the ideas and tools of social entrepreneurship, but also social intrapreneurship, which is, I would say, key, because we are really looking for those people who are the engines behind the moving some kind of effort within the companies or within the society. So what is our town? Our town is today, I'm proud to say, largest volunteering effort, but volunteering effort in Central Europe on the side of corporations. I think this is very important to emphasize. We are today celebrating 13 years of connections. For us, it's really the connections between or among cities, among corporations, as well as among local governments and NGOs. And the whole idea behind is to actually pay attention to public spaces, to the places where we live, and to create the ownership of people for their environment. So the idea is to make the cities healthier, happier, greener, cleaner, and people aware of how they can contribute to it. And it's not only up to the government to do that, but that everybody is able to make a difference and put their little mark on that community. We carry it out as a 2-day event, and today it has 1,000 volunteers across Slovakia, and we are trying to do it in an efficient and a smart way. And it's really, and it is possible only thanks to those corporations who are standing behind it, those NGOs which are proposing what could be done, the cities which are proposing what could be done. But it is based on the willingness of people to donate their time, their talent, and their skills. So, and with the support of their employers. The whole reason why we started this as the Pontis Foundation, and let me just put it maybe in the historical context, because maybe some of you are coming just like me from a former communist country where we as little kids had to involuntarily volunteer. So we used to have very obligatory Saturdays when we actually had to come and had to do something for clean the cities, clean our school and places around us. So when we were starting talking about our town, about volunteering, for us the challenge was even philosophical and linguistic, because we didn't have really the kind of a word in our vocabulary how we would describe volunteering, so or volunteer. And it was really also setting up the tone and making a disconnect with the previous involuntary participation in public affairs, where we just actually had to do it, and it wasn't a free choice of anybody. It was on the other side. It was just the other way. Who didn't come, was potentially persecuted. So this whole effort was done within our Pontis Foundation vision, and the vision is that we wish that Slovakia is a country of global citizens who are free and responsible people, and who care about their lives and their surroundings, and they are also willing to contribute to it. And we, as the Pontis Foundation, are the one who is humbly sharing our resources and our tools with them on how to actually do it, how to do it, and how to carry these efforts through. We value diversity, and we also value the partnerships. So the way that we actually started, what is actually really behind this effort is, as I said before, we wanted to bolster the relationship between citizens and the community. And this whole initiative started also thanks to the fact that in 2003, we as the foundation made a commitment to devote a significant part of our work to corporate responsibility, and do it because at that time we realized that donors who were from other countries, other governmental donors, were leaving Slovakia because they were going to the more emergent markets and the countries with higher need. And we realized that it's still very important to mobilize people and citizens, and it's important to do it within the country. At that time, we also looked at primarily corporations, realizing that we don't have, it was the year early 2005, 2006, when we realized that we don't have yet individuals in Slovakia who would be willing to donate such efforts. And at the same time, the cooperation with the government, setting up procedures and policies of the government wasn't that easy. So for us, really the most natural partner became corporations, and we were looking at it from the point of view of the corporation that is taking really into account all of its stakeholders, and stakeholders meaning its employees and its whole supply chain, as well as the environment in which it operates. And the environment, I mean, in larger sense, the planet, and dealing and addressing also the environmental issues as well as the community. So it really, setting up our town as the idea was done within the group of corporate people who one day sat around the room, and I was just telling them about what I saw in New York, and how this organization, New Yorkers, was really helping very busy corporate people to volunteer either on a weekly basis or daily basis. But for me, what was very interesting was also how much work it had to be done behind the scene, so that the hands and the time of the corporate volunteers would be used. So with this idea in mind, we just approached 20 NGOs at the time, and we asked them if there would be the force of some corporate people, and force meaning willingness to donate their time, what could they do? At that time, we talk mainly about the manual volunteering, and I want to say that, you know, the whole our town, its maybe beauty is about changing the face of the cities within those 2 days, and people really love it just because it is mainly mainly the volunteering activity done by hands. So it's and this is, you know, this is what these NGOs were telling us at that time. You know, they were the ones who were working mainly with the clients. That some of them had their own premises, their own like gardens, but they had no ability, you know, with the just the staff that was taking care of the clients to cultivate these places. So we started really just in a very easy way of describing what could be done within 8 hours, and we bought the necessary tools at that time, and we approached those corporations which were at that time behind the table. Those were the corporations which were members of the Business Leaders Forum, and that we also helped to set up, and they spent their day volunteering for these NGOs and changing actually changing the public spaces in which, or public or the spaces in which these NGOs were operating, and they saw the results. And what was very important, I would say, from the very beginning was that was for us the connection between the people from corporations and people from NGOs, and that we really wanted people from corporations to understand in which NGO they are and what is this NGO doing. And we were hoping already very much in the beginning that this would grow into potentially bigger partnership and bigger caring of the corporate people about the needs of the community and needs of those clients. I can talk later about if it really happened or not, but this was the idea behind. And you know, I have just some graphs, you know, about how we were really growing. You know, you see that we really started from 400 volunteers in one city in the year 2007. Last year in June 2019, we had 10,000 volunteers. That first year we were able to offer 17 NGOs, 17 different activities, 20 companies participating. This year, there were more than 500 activities and 238 different NGOs and different schools took part, and it was 155 corporations. So you see, it was the, yeah, you've seen on these graphs, you know, how we were growing. But what I am especially happy about is that, you know, it's not this effort started in Bratislava but didn't stay in Bratislava, so that we really started to work with the cities, and not just with the NGOs based in those cities, but also the city governments and the local officials. As you see, you know, it's still, you know, most of the activities are done in western part of Slovakia. Part of the reason is that even though for us the partners are also NGOs as well as the cities, was really crucial, because this is a corporate event, is that there have to be corporations in those areas that are willing to actually send their volunteers. And also the idea behind our effort was that the companies see volunteering as an important part of their employee engagement program. So we were from the very beginning try to aim for 2 days of volunteering time for their employees that would be paid, that would be paid for. And most companies are doing it in a way that Friday is paid, and then the employees can continue and work on Saturdays. But there are today many more, volunteering efforts and volunteering activities that the corporate employees can be engaged in, and not just in manual way, but also in a pro bono scale. So this is, how we. So as you see, I was mentioning some of these data about our growth, and and maybe what I will just add is that what's also very important is that we are engaging CEOs, and I will talk more about it in some of the lessons that you already see. These are, this is how we are able to measure impact, but measure impact from the point of view like how the face of the cities really changes within those 2 days, and there is this great feeling of the accomplishment and beautification of those places. But what we consider also really very important is the last figure, and there, as you see, and this is really the cumulative number for those 13 years, but it's almost the 4,000. More than 4,000 interactions between the clients of the facilities, social facilities with our volunteers. And if we talk about the clients of social facilities, those are very often the seniors who are who have hard time, to actually get out and walk, and don't have really that much interactions in those facilities with the outside world. So very often those that are mobile or that are able to be taken on the wheelchairs are just taken for a walk into the park. Out of these efforts, there are some corporate efforts where corporations adopted some houses of seniors, and they just regularly attend these houses, and they regularly take the people to the theaters, or take them to the coffee houses. And it's a very nice kind of a social interaction. But it's also, it's also when you think about those clients, we have been and we still go to places that are serving people who are homeless, people with autism, or people with some hearing impairment. So it is really, or some disabilities, and it's a really, for many of the corporate people, first time in their life, chance to meet person that is, I would say, a little different than them, and most importantly, to learn about their needs, about their way of looking at the world, and also what can be done to make their life better, and what the organization that is working with those people is actually doing, and what is this organization needing. So as you see, the idea very much in the beginning of 2007 was just to introduce corporations to the idea of volunteering for public benefit, and then also provide the hands-on experience with this visible impact of work of the volunteers. And we really had the ambition to make it not just in Bratislava, so make it like an effort within the entire Slovakia. What we have learned, what is kind of maybe behind the scenes, maybe I didn't mention all of it. So if there are more questions, please ask. But I would say one of the most important part is, on the side of my colleagues in the Pontis Foundation, and it's the organization of the whole effort, and it's the whole calendar. behind it. You know, as my colleague Marek Richter, who runs this initiative, pointed out, is, you know, we have a calendar on our like an official calendar, which is on our website. You know, this official calendar starts with February 19, which is a date which is known to the public. It's the day when the NGOs and the schools and the city governments can start nominating the activities. And nominating the activities means that just say what they would need to be done. But the part on our side, you know, starts much more much earlier than that. So it's really, you know, the calendar is about, and the whole organization is set around this need to have enough activities, and we make these very active calls for activities to these stakeholders, and then we try to craft also those activities into the areas of education, social affairs, environment, taking care of, as I said, homeless or other potential interactions, you know, with the clients of social facilities. And we are trying to very clearly determine how many volunteers are needed for what kind of a work. And what's very important is, and I think it's also a part of the motivation for this organization, is that we are giving the grants, like very little grants, to the NGOs to carry out these activities. So actually, if the activity is about painting the fences around the kindergarten, or painting the walls within the homeless shelter, we provide the grant to buy the paint and to just really carry it through. This is motivational because often the NGOs nor schools have money to do that, and they often definitely then don't have the human power to actually carry it through. So the calendar is important because, you know, on the calendar is the deadline also by when we need to have this pool of activities, and also have it described in a very clear and understandable way. We carry out, and this is, I would say, really crucial, and we have learned over the years, and I have it also under the point for training. You know, training as a part of our activity, training for the NGOs. You know, how to think about this volunteering effort, because even though it's you know, it's 500 different activities, we consider every single activity important and crucial, so it actually goes well, because within each of these activities there are people, there is a human being who, if he would leave, you know, and wouldn't feel used, wouldn't feel appreciated, might just get disengaged, and we wouldn't want that to happen. So it's important part, you know, the training of NGOs on this calendar, and then also recruiting the companies, and recruiting the companies which are going to be nominating the volunteers and choosing the among from these activities, and then it's actually carrying the event itself and celebrating its success, but also, you know, then just making the homework on our part, you know, just making sure that all the invoices were paid and we have all the necessary documentation. So, but this is all in our web, and you can just see, you know, like what you have to be all thinking about. I would say so, and it is a challenge because you know, just like we kind of, I would say, perfected this calendar to the point that we really know how much time it takes, you know, to actually get you to that result when you want to have an event on specific day. I would say another big challenge is that if you are thinking about doing such initiative, and I saw this also within the larger organizations, like New Yorkers is to keep the internal staff that works on it motivated, and motivated just from the point of view that the work, like once you do it once, twice, 3 times, is actually all the time kind of the same. So you just you deal maybe with a little different NGOs, a little different like specification of needs, but otherwise it's very much kind of the same work. So you have to think about that and just maybe keep moving people to different levels, but in the meantime training the new ones who will be a part of it. It's a great position to really learn very quickly the management of kind of a very complex task, and dealing with the technology, dealing with people with different requests, dealing with finances. So this is it's a huge learning curve, but after a while it's kind of repetitive. So you have to think about that, and just if you want to keep those employees, just move them to maybe supervision or fundraising or different part of carrying out this effort, and then training new people to do this this job. What's challenging and also rewarding is really dealing with those NGOs and schools, and clarifying what they are actually going to do. It's also building their capacity of thinking about what how to really set the work for volunteers, what's some specific task, how long time they will take, what's realistic, what's not realistic. And we are at these trainings using lots of examples, because we have been witnesses where you came to the place with 30 volunteers, and there was work for maybe 5 people for a few hours, and those people were committed to go there for 8 hours, or we came with few volunteers to the task, which seemed daunting. So over the years we are trying to also share really those lessons with the organizers of these activities, and build their capacity. So I consider this a very significant contribution to capacity building of those people. What's appealing to the volunteers is their ability to really choose the activities. So this is really very nice to have a wide pool of activities, and they can go according to their very personal preference, to the somewhere what's really very much in accordance with their values. So if they care about the environment, they can go to clean from rubbish places, some parts of mountains. So this is really very very, I would say, very appealing, and also very interesting for them. And we try to really put it in those categories. So it's also clear which organizations are working in those fields. So in the future, if the company might be interested in carrying out larger effort than just 2-day volunteering, but would like to work with the organization on a more long-term basis, and would like to really partner on tackling the issue that the organization is addressing, it's able to do that. And as a part of what we do always at the beginning of each meeting and greeting of volunteers is introduction of this organization, usually by the CEO or by people who work there, so that it's very clear, to each corporate volunteer where they are and what is this organization about. I already mentioned that we are strengthening, strengthening the NGO, the volunteers. very important is also the technology behind the scenes is crucial from the point of view, and that we are working, with the system where volunteers are registering through registering online. There is a specific date, when they are actually supposed to start registering. So there is nobody is privileged to get the activity. It's really based on the first come, first forgets the activities. There are always some activities that people just love to go. We always put the the date. If the activity is outside, what might be the date, when it's done. Different. It's very important, to have really, as I said, enough meaningful work for the volunteers to do. We are very open to innovation and are trying to put new activities. Once we realize that the volunteers are willing also to donate their skills and their talents, we started carrying out also the pro bono marathons within our town. Pro bono marathon where volunteers were donating the skills in marketing and doing the campaigns, for different NGOs. And what's key is to make it fun and make it very real. And we also give the NGOs lots of tools how to give praise to the volunteers and how to say thanks. Thank you is crucial at the end. Secret behind the success is that we have very strong media support. We have partnership with the local newspaper, but local newspaper which has also regional newspapers. So there is a minute by minute reporting and covering what the volunteers are doing, and there is a lot of really publicity and a lot of good publicity around this activity. Volunteers can see themselves on the pictures. There is lots of activity in social media. It's interesting for the media and for also the television. So it's kind of a thankful, picturesque effort we have. And this is I also, this has been agreed very much at the beginning, that there is one t-shirt and one marketing identity for our town every year. So this activity wouldn't be we wouldn't be able to carry it out without the corporations which would underwrite it with their corporate support, financial support, but we communicate them in the media, on the website. But the t-shirts that people are wearing are carrying the message of our town for that year. And you see that's also very without the logos of companies. And it's something wonderful often when you are in smaller towns, but even in the town like Bratislava, in the city like Bratislava, on those Fridays and Saturdays, you see many people, just going through the town, in the same t-shirt. Engagement of CEOs is also crucial. Employees need to see that the CEO is behind it. We often offer special activities just for CEOs so that they have a ability to talk to each other. They have ability to do something together. It's very much very welcome, and we are trying to send the CEOs and welcome them in different NGOs year by year. We had a very nice case this year when we, after 5 or 6 years, went to the same NGO that and the same actually building, and there were only few of those CEOs which actually remembered it, but it was still very nice and very, very symbolic. And so, and the secret is that, as I said, that you can see the real change, within those two days, and people are proud. People are proud that they contributed to that. And often, you know, what's the part of the vision? You know, we part of our vision also was that maybe there is you know, something that will move within people, and they will feel that they can be a part of the community, part of making Slovakia a better place for living. And it doesn't have to be something really huge, and they can just devote, you know, a few hours to that. Our hope always was that there would be, you know, potentially spark of the interest on the side of those volunteers, and they would start coming back to some of these NGOs. This is actually happening, and there are cases, you know, when for the corporate volunteers, it just wasn't possible to understand how some NGO is not able to do their website or doesn't have the management system of their clients. So there is a lot of these kind of little individual efforts which are now done behind, and we are, I must say, not always the best in tracking many of these personal stories, and that's, you know, maybe part of the vision, that we would like to track it more, and also track the impact of the individual activities as a part of a bigger solution. And bigger solution is connection to a bigger contribution to the topic. And what I concretely mean is that if we are, as a Pontis Foundation, devoting, for example, to changing the future of education, we made very specific effort to send volunteers and to partner with the schools, and so that they understand, you know, what kind of obstacles the schools are facing, and what has to be done really also, not just, you know, on a physical way of the appearance way, but also, you know, philosophically, how, you know, the system really has to change. So we are trying to also build the advocates for those topics, but in the time frame that we have within those 2 days of their volunteering effort. So and as I said, you know, the pictures are always beautiful, and people are having fun, and we know it because there are you know, the returning volunteers and returning people who are the coordinators of those volunteers within the corporations. So I will be very happy to answer any of the questions.
Yes, Lenka, we had one question. Thank you so much for this introduction of the case. We had one question. We have one question this far. The question is: there was an exponential growth in the years 2012-2013. What were the key drivers for it? So I can try to go back to that slide. Where are the statistics? Maybe here? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened in those years?
We just started being more intentional about it. I would say it's, you know, as it is in the NGO, you start something, and often you don't have really the, it's an attempt to do it, and you commit the resources to it, but sometimes, not often, those resources, you know, are done in a way that, you know, are done in a way that, you know, what the activity really takes. And that was the time, you know, when we went through the strategic planning. We decided that actually, yes, our town is a important key part of our community building efforts, and we put people in charge of it, and gave you know, the bigger team to this activity, and it showed in the numbers and in what these people were able actually to do. Because, as I said, you know, it is a lot of work behind the scenes, contacting the corporations, the face of the fundraising. So you actually have the money to carry it through. Usually we have the partners from corporations, which are often the ones who are committed to corporate responsibility, who understands that it is the great benefit for the employees in building their loyalty to the company, and also the companies want to change Slovakia and contribute to this change. So that's one part of the effort, but then the other part is really the work with the NGOs, and then the work with the coordinating the effort of the coordinators of the volunteers on the side of corporations.
Thank you.
And we also did, I think at that year, we also did, the introduction in other cities. So we traveled through other cities, and also we started with the CEO activity, and we did a big launch of our town prior to our town to introduce it to the CEOs.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. There is another question. What is the time frame to organize such a mobilization in 1 year? You said that NGOs can publish the activities in February, but when do they volunteer?
When do NGO, it's, on our part, we say we finish one circle of our town, and we are almost like in a preparation of the other circles. So we have to, it's really kind of a year-round effort. So publicly, we are approaching, publicly it starts, the public date is February for NGOs to start registering, and the activity then is in June. But for us, we end the activities in June. We try to do, all the marketing, closing of the marketing efforts, and all the, closing actually of the books, and closing, just we have to collect all the receipts from the NGOs and all the reports and all the pictures. So this is the kind of, it takes, maybe 1-2 months, and then we start approaching the corporations again and start fundraising for the next year. And this takes through January. We are improving also often, the databases behind it and the technology behind, so that, it's easier for NGOs to register, and also for the corporate volunteers to register.
So if I understood this correctly, the NGOs and the activities and the municipalities can register from February till May or April, and then volunteers, yes?
Yes, until April, yes. And then, there is like a date in May when volunteers can start registering.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the whole event takes place in June.
In June, and it's two-day event. But it also, it means contracting the media support, contracting agreeing, just on the grants with the NGOs and carrying out. It's one of these. When we have 500 activities, it means that we have 238 NGOs. That's what we had this year. So we had 238 grants, that we gave to the NGOs. So we had 238 contracts behind it, and then we have to really hold the documentation that all these activities were done well. It's often not very big amount of money. We as the foundation, we give a much larger grants to the NGOs that are let's say fighting corruption, and we have to do the same amount of kind of financial accountability, no matter how big or small the grant is.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much. These were all the questions from the chat. Are there any other questions now, live? You are welcome now. Please don't forget to unmute your microphone if you would like to raise a question to Lenka. We have space now for questions. Last second.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes. Please.
So my question would be, so how do you ensure that the initiatives that you ask the people to volunteer for are appealing to them? I'm currently in Nairobi, Kenya, and not everyone is so given to volunteerism. So I'm trying to think about how one may want to package the idea of volunteerism to make it appealing to the volunteers, to have them continue volunteering for more hours and, you know, having more volunteers increasing in number.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yes. So there are maybe two questions, if I understood it correctly. So why does the volunteer actually come and does something, and maybe also, you know, why the corporation would stand behind it. So it's, you know, there is nothing better. You cannot really transfer the experience. So it's, you know, it's to come and to have that experience yourself, but often what happens, and this is why it had been growing, you know, there have been people who went and volunteer and then they came back to the company and talk about it, you know, and if you saw how enthusiastic they have been about it and how enthusiastically they were recruiting then people for next year, and those people had a very same experience and were happy that they were there and were happy to work in a team with their colleagues and doing something great, then they used to come back. And we have actually the experience, and this is very interesting, when the people even left the company for which they worked on their professional career, but they never missed the opportunity to go back and volunteer with their former corporate colleagues, because they just love the time together and love that experience together. For corporations, the motivation is really, you know, everything all the data are saying, and the data are saying that people today really care about their alignment of their personal values with the values of the company, and that company is just really doing what it says it does. And therefore, you know, if the company gives the people the space, its employees the space to volunteer, if the company shows that it cares about the community needs, and it actually provides the way for them, it builds the employees' loyalty, it builds the proud about the company for which the employees are working. So I would say that's one of the, that's from the motivational point of view, other than there is a change that happens. We have, and those are just like really personal stories, when the volunteers are coming year by year. You can see it also because they, you know, wear different t-shirts. You know, the t-shirts change colors, and some of them have those kind of the collection of our town t-shirts.
Thank you very much for the answer.
Thank you, Ma'am.
You're welcome, and good luck.
Thank you. Any other questions? Again, if you would like to raise a question, please don't forget to unmute your microphone.
I do have a question. do you plan, or are you trying to somehow extend this event to different countries, or to make it at the European level? It's really interesting. I didn't know about it before, and I was already starting looking to, okay, could I do this in my town? Is there something similar? So yeah, have you tried already to expand this event to a more transnational level? Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Actually, I meant to say, then I forgot to say that this is a scalable project. As you see, we took the idea and just, completely modified it, to our circumstances and our conditions. And we loved it so much. Then when we used to work in the Balkans, in Serbia, we helped to set up the Business Leaders Forum there. We also helped to set up this kind of a volunteering event. It's called Our Belgrade, there, Naš Belgrad. And we were sharing it also with people in Belarus where we used to work. So yeah, we would be happy, to share the experience and host you, at the Pontis Foundation, or potentially, send our person who is Marek, or somebody from his team, to share that experience in your countries.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. So this is an opportunity for everyone who would like to set up something in their own town or own country to contact Lenka or Pontis Foundation on behalf of this. Any other questions? If not, maybe this is the time to close the webinar. I would like to thank you very much, Lenka, for your time and for the efforts and for getting up this early for this event. Also, big thank you to Patrizia Baffioni, who organized this whole series on behalf of Social Impact, Social Innovation Academy. I'm sorry. And this webinar will be available through our online academy, Social Impact Innovation Academy, and also through the Skyrocket platform.eu website, maybe in a few days. I hope to see you next time during our next academy webinar. If there are any informations or dates, times on this, Patrizia, this would be maybe the opportunity to provide additional information.
Yes, I'm just trying to share the link to the subpage where you can find information on the upcoming webinars. That's the link. But there should be one towards the end of this month around the topic of stakeholder engagement. The dates are not fixed yet, but if you follow our Facebook page, Social Eye Makers, you will find more information soon.
Yes, thank you very much. This was very helpful information. Well, again, this is the end of this webinar now. Thank you very much once again for having joined us, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye. Bye-bye.